Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Bringing the Zoo to You. My name is Dara, I am a senior animal care specialist here, and we are talking to you from inside Habitat Africa, where we're checking in on our reticulated giraffe herd. All right, so we have 4 members of our giraffe herd, our reticulated giraffe herd. We have 2 males and 2 females. The one that's right in front of us right here, this tall friend of mine, is Pataka. He is one of our males. He was born here about 7.5 years ago. He is walking over to see his mother, Jasiri, who's one of our females. She's 15. Jasiri's lived here most of her life, but she actually was born in California. And then coming up over here to the right side of the screen, that is Arnita. Arnita was born here 14 years ago yesterday. So a little happy belated birthday to Arnita, who I did not see yesterday, so hope she had a good birthday. She was born here as well. So our giraffes are, like many of us, they don't like the cold. They don't like hanging outside in the cold. So they spend a lot of their time indoors in the wintertime. And in order to kind of keep them occupied and happy, so to speak, we provide a lot of different types of enrichment for them. So you can see Pataka back there by the wall is chewing on browse. Browse are edible tree cuttings that we offer the giraffes. We have a really nice partnership with ComEd. They bring us their cut branches of approved species of trees that we can feed out to our animals. And they bring those to us year round. So in the summer months when things have a lot of leaves and delicious green bits on them, the giraffes are really appreciative of those things. But even in the wintertime when the sticks are bare, they will spend a lot of time chewing the smaller shoots and sticks off of there. They also strip the bark straight off the branches. I don't know if you can see it too well on the one that's hanging right here, but they will really just pull the bark right off of it. It's very good for their cognitive health, it's good for their dental health, and they just love it more than pretty much anything. In addition, we do have some inedible objects that we offer them. You can see the bamboo chimes that are hanging from this pulley over here. And then as we pan around, we'll note some things that look like logs, like these things right here. This is a puzzle feeder that we have for our giraffes. Our giraffes have very, very interesting tongues. They use these tongues as kind of a prehensile way of pulling things and grabbing things and stripping bark. They really manipulate things a lot with their tongues. They get, in the wild, they would get in and around some very thorny acacia bushes. So in here, they tend to mimic those behaviors as well with the food that we offer them. So we offer them puzzle feeders that have kind of different compartments and things like that on the inside of it so that they, kind of promote those natural behaviors. It also extends the time that it takes them to eat, so that's kind of very helpful as well. Our giraffes are fed about 20 to 25 pounds of prepared diet every day, and we spread that out over several feedings throughout the day just to kind of break up the day a little bit. They also have 24-hour access to alfalfa hay and those browse cuttings like we mentioned before. So even when the giraffes are not actually consuming anything, they will oftentimes lick and explore their environment a little bit with their tongues. It helps stimulate the saliva, which keeps their rumen pH at appropriate levels, so there's kind of a rhyme and reason to everything that they do with those tongues, even if we don't fully understand it. They do like to show off their tongues quite a bit.
So how tall are all of the giraffes, and who's the tallest?
So right here in front of us, Pataka, he is our tallest. He is 7.5 years old, like I mentioned before. He is right around 16 feet tall, and he will probably keep growing a little bit longer. They do tend to slow down in growth when they're about 7 years of age, but he could still get a little bit taller. Reticulated giraffes are the smallest subspecies of giraffe, if you can even consider a giraffe to be small. So the males typically top out around 16 or 17 feet with reticulated giraffes, and females, no matter the subspecies, are shorter than the males by usually 1.5 to 2 feet. So Arnita just on the other side of Pataka, she is probably right around that 14-foot range. It's very hard to measure giraffes, just so it's not the easiest thing to do. So we kind of have to guesstimate. We have a rudimentary measuring stick type of thing that's painted on the wall so that when they actually walk up to it, we can get a good estimate as to what their height is. So Arnita is about 14, maybe a little bit more, feet tall. And then Jasiri, who's over on the left over here, who, as I mentioned before, is Pataka's mother. She is actually our shortest giraffe. She is right around 13 feet, again, give or take a few inches. And like I mentioned, the girls and Pataka will continue to grow, but everything kind of does slow down as they get older. The girls, being 14 and 15 years of age respectively, they are kind of pretty much done with growing. In the back, if you guys can see, the fourth member, or the newest member of our herd, he's been here for a few years. He came here on a breeding recommendation. His name is Ato, and he has been with us since 2017. He is 5 years old, and he came here on a breeding recommendation. So he's just hanging out back there doing his thing, and he will definitely continue to grow. The males in particular get a lot of bony protrusions as they get older, more calcified kind of nubs on their skull. That helps aid in making their heads heavier overall, which aids in that swinging necking behavior that I'm sure we have all seen on Discovery Channel at one time or another. Typically the males engage in that type of behavior. It's usually a dominance breeding ritual that the males go through. We have seen our females do it with the males kind of half-heartedly, but typically the females don't engage in that all that much. But as males get older and older, they tend to get more of those bony, knobby protrusions on their heads.
So what are those horns on top of their heads?
Those are called ossicones, and you're correct. They are basically horns. They are covered in fur. They do not fall off the way that antlers do. And actually, giraffes are the only mammal that has them in the womb. They come out with them kind of folded flat over their skull. They're a little bit on the softer side, and they're not quite fused to the skull when they're born. That's just to aid in the birth delivery aspect of it. But then as they get older, they start to slowly stand up, and then they become hardened, just bony protrusions, basically, with fur covering them.
So what other animals have ossicones?
Okapi. The okapi is the only other kind of relative, I guess you would call it, of the giraffe, the only living relative of the giraffe that's left. So they also have them. Same thing, ossicones, they're fur covered, horny protrusions.
Do giraffes sleep standing up?
They do, actually. Giraffes spend most of their day eating. It's what they love to do the most. I'm sure we can relate. They tend to really just nap. They don't need a lot of prolonged sleep. They can usually get away with, 15, 30-minute increments. So they will oftentimes just fall asleep standing up. Sometimes you can't even tell because their eyes are still in that half-open stage, so they look very, very relaxed, but they might actually be sleeping. Sometimes they do go down on all fours, which is called sternal recumbency, and they will sleep like that. Despite their giant size, they can actually get up from that position pretty quickly, but it is a vulnerable position for them to be in, so even in managed care, the giraffes are kind of hardwired to know that that's not the safest place for them to be in, is down on all fours, so they tend to nap standing up more often than not.
Do we have any babies right now?
Not right now. We're hoping that Arnita and Ato will take care of that for us in the near future. Giraffe breeding can be very, very quick, so the animal care staff here has to be really on their toes, noticing all the signs of courtship and things like that between our giraffes. They could breed at any time of the year, and then when they do, if it is successful, we won't see that baby for about 14 and a half months. So it's a long waiting game, but boy, is it worth it.
Do they still hang out with the tortoises outside during the summer?
They do not. The tortoises and the giraffes have come to a mutual agreement, and they decided that they wanted to seek out other real estate. So I believe they got their own yard where they don't have to share with the tall guys.
Yes, I think they're over in the pachyderm house now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Those are the guys that used to be here.
Yes, correct.
The sulcata
Correct.
and the Galapagos. Well, I don't. The Galapagos weren't over here.
Which
right?
ones?
The Galapagos weren't here. Just the sulcata.
No, just the sulcatas.
Okay. Let's see. Do we brush the giraffes' teeth here at Brookfield Zoo?
No, we do not brush their teeth. They take care of all of that for us, thankfully. So speaking of teeth, they actually have 32 teeth, just like most humans.
Really?
But they don't have any teeth on the top in the front. What they have is a hard palate. They have teeth all the way along their bottom jaw, and they have molars up on the upper part in the very far back. But that hard palate in the front kind of aids in using their bottom teeth like a comb to strip and pull leaves and bark off of trees like I was talking about earlier. So they're exclusively designed for their diet, which is just all vegetation all the time. There's no meat or anything like that in these guys' diet. So you can see Pataka is working on that stick exactly like I was talking about. I wasn't kidding. He does actually just strip the bark right off of there. And he's using that hard palate to kind of brace the branch against while his teeth go to work pulling off the bark.
All right, great. Do you know what kind of branches they're eating there right now, or stripping?
Yes, they are stripping mulberry branches right now.
Ooh, is that their favorite?
It seems to be. They've got a few favorites that they love. Hello, Arnita, birthday girl. They do love mulberry. They do love different types of maple, but not all types of maple are suitable for them to eat. So they like the sugar maple and the Norway maple. And occasionally some silver maple. It's not their favorite. They do really like the mulberry. They love willow. So we tend to get a nice assortment from ComEd, and they're aware of what they can and cannot bring for us. We also have an arborist on staff here at the zoo who can also bring us things in between the ComEd deliveries. We've got a nice grounds department that helps us out whenever we ask them to. So we're all kind of just trying to keep these guys, the way that they're accustomed to with their branches every day.
Arnita just gave us a really nice close-up of her lips, and it looked like she had, hair on her lips. So do they have fuzzy lips, or?
They're basically whiskers.
Whiskers,
yeah,
okay.
They're basically whiskers, and they act just like that. It helps them kind of sense what they're eating, what they're exploring. In this particular wintertime setting, without all the leaves being on everything, they can kind of see exactly what they're going towards to eat. But when they've got their face in a full leafy branch or tree or anything like that, it helps them kind of navigate themselves around and make sure they don't bite into something that they don't want to. In the wild, giraffes really rely heavily on that because the stuff that they eat in the wild, being mainly acacia, can be extremely thorny and dangerous, so they have a way of getting around that with the aid of those whiskers.
You can also kind of see here, well, I think people can kind of see here. It seems like they're using their lips to kind of help them strip the branches and manipulate the things that they're eating.
Yeah, that mouth of theirs is full of muscles and has to, provide a lot of strength to pull all that stuff apart the way that they do. So yeah, I'm glad you can see that. That is not something you can see when they're out in their yard kind of far away. You don't get to see that kind of stuff up close.
What's their average lifespan?
Average lifespan is typically in that mid-20s range. There have been exceptions that have been a little bit older than that, even in the 30, 31, but those are kind of an exception and not the rule. But typically mid-20s is a general lifespan for them. In the wild, it is oftentimes much, much shorter because they don't have proper vet care like they do here, and lack of predators and things like that. So in the wild, it definitely would be a little bit shortened, but it's possible out there as well. Never say never.
So speaking of predators, what kind of animals would hunt them in the wild?
Typically, if an animal in the wild, a predator in Africa, is going to take down a healthy adult giraffe, it's typically only going to be lions. They have the ability to actually jump onto a giraffe and bring them down. However, younger giraffes, giraffe calves, or if a giraffe is older or compromised due to sickness or something like that, hyenas could also take part of them. Pretty much any of the large carnivores out there would never shun giraffe meat if they could get a hold of it. But typically, because the giraffes are so tall and they have such strong legs, a kick from a giraffe leg, an adult giraffe leg, could, if it lands correctly, it could absolutely kill a lion. So I think predators out in Africa are pretty savvy about knowing what they can and can't do, knowing their limits. So oftentimes lions are the ones that are the biggest predator of these guys. But there are other animals that will also take advantage depending on the situation.
What are baby giraffes called?
They're called calves.
Giraffe calf. It's a little rhyme.
You answered your own question. But I'll tell you, they are very, very large animals when they're born. They are 5.5 to 6 feet tall. Yes, feet. And they usually weigh about 150 to 180 pounds at birth. So that is a large baby.
How old is the oldest giraffe that we have here at Brookfield Zoo?
To your left over there, that would be Jasiri, and she is 15.
How warm does it have to be for them to go outside?
Typically, they absolutely refuse to go outside when it's cold. So anything under 45 degrees with no inclement weather, meaning no rain, no wind, not super overcast. 45 and sunny is okay for them, but if there is a lot of cloud cover or if it's very windy or anything like that, typically under 48, it's kind of pushing it. They have a lot of mass to keep warm, and they're just not typically found in cold climates anyway. There's a lot of different places to find giraffes in Africa, but none of them have the cold like we do here in Chicago, and they just simply don't tolerate it.
Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what happens on the first day they come out every spring?
Oh yes, the joy of running. Typically, well, I'll be honest, I've been here for a little over 10 years, and every time that we let the giraffes out after being inside for the winter, they act like they've never seen that yard before. So it usually takes a couple minutes for them to get up the nerve to actually step out there. They act as though it's a trick, even though it is not. But I'm being funny, but at the same time, it is part of the way that they survive. Despite how large they are a prey species. So they have to question everything that is outside of their routine, outside of the norm. Anything that looks slightly different, we might not even pick it up, but they do. So when they finally get the nerve to go outside and stretch their legs, literally, they usually run around like it's Christmas. They run, they kick, they run in circles, they kind of chase each other around. We have a pretty large yard out there for them, and they can cover the ground in mere seconds. It almost looks like slow motion when they're running because of those long legs. But yeah, they get a little funny out there. It's definitely worth seeing every year. It doesn't get old. So.
How do they keep themselves clean?
We don't really see a lot of grooming with the giraffes. Admittedly, they do get a little bit less glossy and beautiful in the wintertime.
Sorry.
Everything is food to her. You have to know this. Everything is potential food.
I just didn't realize she was so close.
You do see them kind of grooming themselves a little bit, but it's not as extensive as you would see with a lot of other animals, and they don't really groom each other. So typically whenever it rains, things like that out there, we don't give them baths or anything. They don't actually really like to be pet or touched all that much, despite their kind of approaching nature and friendliness, it seems. They really don't like to be touched all that much. So we don't bathe them or aid in that in any way, and they do just fine.
Do they play with any toys?
They do. So I had mentioned a little bit earlier that even if it's not something that they're actually consuming, we do offer things for them to kind of work their tongue around. So we have little tongue toys, as well as the puzzle feeders that I was talking about. We also have some heavier items like the bamboo. That's just one set of bamboo that we have, but we also have what are called bamboo curtains. And the males really like those a lot because they like to swing their heads at things. So, you know, we have some of the heavier items that they can kind of knock around a little bit and just get some of that energy out.
Why are their tongues purple?
That is actually a natural sunblock. So typically giraffes, as I mentioned, forage and eat all day long. And their very natural position is to have their heads raised towards the sun. And they use that tongue, like I've said many times over, they use that tongue all the time. It is the workhorse of them. So they would have very sunburnt tongues if they didn't have that natural bluish purple kind of sunblock to it. So that's just nature's way of looking out for them. All right. So that's about all the time we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, for bringing the zoo to you. Thank you for your continued support of Brookfield Zoo, and we will see you hopefully very soon. Bye-bye.